right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley. This week, a break from the league. The big old Chelsea come down to the Valley and spank us 5-1. You were at the game.
Yeah,
Sounds worse than it is.
I think so. I think, to be honest with you, like as Charlton fans, when we come up against like a high caliber Prem side, especially a team like Chelsea, who've spent stupid money in the last however long. I mean, for a long time they've been spending big money. You see the glamour of it, and you sort of you're going to see some big name players on display, and that's what I found quite cool. Is I was able to see like players like Gittins, Garnacho, then they were bringing Neto off the bench.
Caicedo over 100
like
mil, 100,
Caicedo
110 mil, I think. They
started
played
the
for it.
game as well, to be fair. Played pretty much the whole game. That's quite a novelty these days, especially from where we've been in the last 5 years down in League One. Even when we were up in the Championship before that, like it was rare that we were coming up against teams of that caliber. So that was the big occasion for us. We knew we were going to be up against it from the get-go. We were always going to have to sort of trench in and see if we could grind something out. And to be fair, for the first half, we'll go over the game in a minute, but they huffed and puffed, and they were sort of knocking on the door for quite a long time, but it took them up until the very end of the first half to actually
and I think they found us frustrating. We were playing incredibly deep and playing on the counter, but I thought there was times where we were getting little bits and pieces, and they were little because Chelsea dominated big spells of that game, and it was very much attack versus defence.
It sort of counter stuff from us in terms of like we might occasionally we'd win a little flick on, and then Kelman, to be fair, got a few nice little runs in behind, getting to the ball. And actually, when we managed to get our foot on the ball, at times we looked quite good, and we looked like actually we might be able to pick off a couple of little sort of free balls. But then again, when you're coming up against even a rotated Chelsea side, their back line looked pretty solid. They're athletic. It's another thing that you notice massively straight away is how quick the players are, how skillful they are, how calm they are on the ball.
Or just how they pass it around the midfield and just kind of tire us out. And it felt like a game that, look, we showed a lot of fight and desire in that first half to defend, especially on the defensive side, and still show elements of kind of danger in maybe
there's always going to be moments on there.
Yeah, and I think also when you look at the result, and as I say, we'll go into the full game a little bit more detail in a sec, but 91st minute and 94th minute, it was two of their goals. One of them, I don't think it was a pen. He got his hand on it, and was a poor decision, kind of irrelevant at that point anyway. But I think when you look at it, to go up into that 90th minute 3-1 down against Chelsea, it's not bad at all. I thought there was some quite nice positives to take from the game. I thought we still saw some of our frustrating traits that we see in the Championship or against the Premier League opposition of lumping it. But I think it was a game where you can understand lumping it is a tactic that a lot of teams would go for.
And actually, like when you're coming up against that sort of level of team, you've got to find different ways to try and break them down and stuff that's going to make it difficult for them.
Well, I think more so with Chelsea probably than any other top four side in regards to top of the kind of the Prem. Because of their transfer mentality, they've gone for so many like 40, 50 mil players. Their second-rate team is just littered with quite bizarre. Like a lot of the time, I remember when the boys scored the first goal. Our group chat was kind of like, who was he? And I feel like that whenever I watch Chelsea every week. I kind of, when I look at the scores, etc., I always see someone in their squad who I'm like,
it's like the other boy that scored the rebound that Mannion made a save from, Goyi. I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
He's from Barca, I think. They signed him.
I'm like looking at them, and
they signed him for 5 mil. I think I looked after as soon as he scored, they signed him for 5 mil from Barca, either this summer or last summer, or God knows when in their ownership. But they've just got lots of
players that are clearly very, very good players, but like you said, you sort of see the names and you're like, who's that? Like,
you've only got to look at, you've got, I say, Caicedo, who we've already said over 100 mil. Then later on in the game, you've got Fernandez coming on over 100 mil. You've got Esteval coming on, who's probably one of the most exciting youngsters kind of coming through at the moment. It's frightening. And
we knew, didn't we, to be fair? We knew we were like massively up against it, and at the end of the day, it more was an occasion for the fans just to actually see where we, because again, it's like, and we briefly talked about this before we come on here, seeing where the club can get to, because ultimately, if we ever get promoted eventually, It will happen. It
At
will
some
happen.
point.
They're the sort of week in, week out games we will see. Like, and actually playing Chelsea sides that will put their full strength team out. But you're looking at those big London clubs, those big top level clubs in the Premier League will be regulars at the Valley. And actually, you can see how that stadium, just walking in there like before the kickoff, atmosphere was brilliant, and like you're seeing a sold out Valley. That's what we were used to back in the day, and it just shows that actually, as a club, we are capable of putting on that show and that sort of having the fan base there to actually push on. It's just now we're in that transition. We talk about it a lot, but we're still trying to get our way back there. But it's just lovely to see that is actually where we could be.
And I think that's kind of where even like the management and the club probably look at that game and putting it on. It's kind of, even to the players, to the
carrot,
clubs, to the fans, it's kind of like it's dangling a carrot of what could happen. I also felt, and I don't know if you felt this as well, but when the game kind of went on, you think that is their, I don't know if I'd call it second rate, but it had a few littered first team players, but predominantly
It's a
second rate,
rotated squad.
rotated squad, and we had a relatively good strength team
Yeah,
now, pretty much there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
It does make me think, when there were talks at the beginning of the season of like playoffs and this, that, the other, it made me really realise how far, and I know a lot of teams are. I mean, the teams that go up who have been relegated over the last, kind of yo-yoing over the last few years, can go and get turned around 5-0 by Chelsea. But to me, I think we've even seen it against Championship clubs this season, but I think that was just on another level of how far, even though it feels not far away, the Prem, how far in regards to quality this team is. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's sometimes a leveler of sometimes these expectations, a reality check of actually, look, we are still miles off it. Not to say it won't ever get there, but I don't see that as a bad thing.
But weirdly, like, if you look at, like, and you just said it there, on paper, we're not a million miles off the Prem. Like, if we had one good season where we pushed ourselves into the playoffs, you never know what could happen. Like, you see it, it does happen where teams come out of the blue and actually
Luton,
like
Luton,
exactly
over the years, Luton, Blackpool, you've had loads, haven't you?
Even argue like Bournemouth at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Brentford, kind of. I know they've built up over a number of years, but Brentford kind of sit in that.
These are the sort of clubs that we probably sit in a similar sort of, where, you know, we've been out of the Prem for a long time now, but that's not to say that we're not. If we are managed properly, if the club is run properly, which it feels like it is now, there's nothing to say like in the next 4 or 5 years we couldn't get there. And that's what I think was like really encouraging, just seeing the Valley the way it was. That we have that carrot, as you said. It's like it's really like, it's actually quite inspiring in a way. And even just seeing like the sold out away, and like the Chelsea fans were really good actually, which you'd expect.
I think for the club it was a brilliant occasion, and look, everyone wants to go there and have that upset, which come once in a blue moon, and they do happen, but they're rarities. But I think for the club that day, the atmosphere, everything that kind of came with it, I think is a brilliant thing for the club, and
100%.
was a good day out for a lot of fans, a lot of excitement around it, and yeah, I think overall.
But also, like, fans leaving the ground afterwards, no one was like sort of moaning or anything like that. It's like, it was what it was, like, and everyone kind of expected that before the game. So, like you said, it's just a really good day out for everyone.
I thought quite interesting, and I know once again we will go into the game in a sec. But I thought one of the interesting ones as well was Nathan Jones's interview after the game.
Pretty livid, wasn't
he? Was really angry, and I think he was actually, what I quite liked about that was, I think what he was most angry about was, it's Chelsea, and yes, there's a very good chance you're going to lose, but some of the mistakes that we maybe made in that game are what we have seen in some league games, etc. And his view is, if you're making those mistakes there, you still need to, doesn't matter who's coming to the Valley, you still don't make those basic mistakes, because if they beat you from absolute sheer quality, you can put your hands up and say, look, they've got 100 mil players. But when you are actually making mistakes, and I think he alluded to, especially like the second goal, for example, that was just a cross-in free header, very easy. Is that to do with Chelsea being amazing? Probably not. And I quite liked the fact that it was kind of, he didn't just go on the, what an occasion, we were expecting to lose.
It's a great point, because actually we went 45 minutes without conceding. So we proved that we can.
Well, I think that's where he felt the frustration. And let's go into the game now. The first half, very good defensively. Not much to it. They were huffing and puffing. There were times where they were, especially Gittins down the right. I felt very sorry for TC. I think defensively he struggles sometimes against Championship wingers, and you're coming up against someone who was playing for Borussia Dortmund.
Gittins had lightning footwork as well. He was just doing step overs.
Yeah.
You never knew if he was going to go left, right, sort of cut down the wing. He looked really dangerous. And actually, when you're there, like, I was obviously there watching it. Every time he got the ball, I was like, oh no, like, he's going to skin him here.
And it did feel like that, but we were really defensively resolute, and that's how that first half went. And I felt, if we had gone into that 0-0, the nerves start to set in. And I thought, do you know what? Probably the first part of that day, somewhat unravelling, was the timing of that goal. Just gave them such a boost. Hell of a strike.
It was. Even from where I was sat, 'cause I was like in the east stand, quite close to the away fans. And even from where I was, you could tell he hit it really well, like straight in the top corner and with power as well. But again, like what you just said, like we proved that we are able to sort of shut out even a high level team, and actually the goals that we ended up conceding towards the sort of end of the game were just silly mistakes, and they're the things. I think Nathan Jones said before the game, he's like, we're not there just to take autographs from the players. Like he is very much of the mentality of, like you said, if you're going to play a certain way at championship level, you've got to be able to transfer that in whatever team you come up against. And like you could tell as soon as that goal went in, with those FA Cup games, you really have to be quite fortunate to sort of. I remember when we did it against Brighton, we were able to shut it out for actually into extra time and into pens. But you have to get a lot of elements of luck in those games, and I think when that first goal went in, it did deflate the crowd a little bit. It was like, okay, we've now got to actually score a goal,
and that's where I think the problems came with it, because as soon as you do as well, you know, all they've got to do now is let us come on to them and then just hit us on the counter. And they are, as soon as we start opening up, there will no doubt, with the quality they've got, there will be holes appearing, there'll be chances. Because I felt as well in the first half, one of the things I'd say as a Charlton fan watching that performance I was so proud of is I don't think they actually had that many clear-cut chances. They were getting
long-range shots.
Yeah, getting to a lot of frustration of shooting over the bar. Some really good saves in there from Mannion as well. I thought Mannion looked... I thought first half especially, I thought he looked really nervy. Like, and to be honest, hadn't played in a long time, to come in quite a big occasion, sold out crowd. I thought some of his distributions, he looked shaky.
Yeah. Did make some good saves though. You're right.
Well, no, he did, and as he did in that first half, made some important, albeit expected saves.
Yeah.
Second half is where I think he really came into his own after a certain point. So we come into that second half, we've got to go for it a bit more, and I feel
we came out the traps.
Yeah, we came out the traps quite well. It looked like we maybe were going to start causing a few problems, and then ball crossed in from a free kick. They go 2-0 up. Really easy.
That's right in front of me. Actually. I've got a little video that I took.
I'll put it up. I was going to say I'll pop that up on now then. But yeah, no, it was frustrating because it felt like we had started that half quite well, and at that point then I think I was thinking, it's going to be a long afternoon. It felt like it was one of those naturally, and especially when you'd seen scorelines such as the Man City 10-1 in the end.
Was it 10?
Yeah, 10-1.
Oh my word.
10-1. And I think when I saw that, I thought, oh no, here we go. Because I've seen us collapse, but also I thought we'll start maybe looking at kind of next week's game, not wanting to risk injuries. But we didn't. And
fought back, didn't we?
Yeah, we fought back. And 7 minutes later, which I think there was so much of it I was happy with, just because the atmosphere of the fans. I thought the one thing they did deserve was to get a bit of the game where it got a bit dicey, and that first half was all attack against us. And we got the goal. Well worked, Lee Byrne, I thought, and it's a good point to go into kind of just a brief overview on him, but I thought he played brilliantly throughout the game.
He was really up for it, wasn't he? And I think we spoke how he's sort of had a bit of a youth period at Chelsea, so I think he had a bit of a point to prove, and he's coming up against the Premier League side. He really wants to test himself in that one and see whether he can get a goal. And to be fair, that goal was, although it was obviously it came from a Jones header, wasn't it, from the corner. Keeper made a good save, but he still had to tuck it away, and he did lever it in, to be fair.
He had to tuck it away, and I felt like everything up to that point of the game, I actually felt one of the days where I felt confident he would. He felt really on it. He felt really...
He was.
And I think the way you can do it is actually the commentators going into these games, a lot of the time they're maybe not covering across Charlton that often.
They won't know about him.
And I know that because when Harvey Nibbs came on, they kept calling him Harry Nibbs. So repetitive. It was really doing my head in. But they don't. And he was because one thing they were saying was if we were in that game going to cause problems and we were going to do something, it was taking advantage of it. And I think where they saw probably the issues in the first half was he was doing everything right, but the players around him weren't necessarily taking advantage of it. And we actually needed to be a bit more play to our strengths of how Lee Byrne was playing.
Well, he did what he does best very well, and actually coming up against, like we said, high caliber players, he was able to bully a few of them and like win the ball. And actually, he had I think he had a couple of little moments where he sort of backheeled it into the path of people. He did look like he really was on it.
But is that and look, I think it's someone we're going to go into a little bit more detail later. So I think we'll probably leave that one there, but we will come back onto it because I think there's some interesting points around that that can cause optimism and frustration. So going on from there, I think we had this moment where after the goal went in, I felt we actually started picking up the ball. The crowd was up. We actually started to push them back a little bit and get on the ball a bit. But it was quite short-lived because that was only for 5 minutes. And when that goal went in, it was poor from Mannion, really poor. And I found it really frustrating because I thought up to then he had been quite shaky, but it was such a key point of the game, and it felt like everything that we'd just built up with the fans, the momentum, the crowd was just shattered in that moment, and it felt like at 3-1.
You've got to get 2 goals to even just get back level.
Just to get the one back, it felt like we'd have to be fortunate and probably get our lucky break, take advantage of a bit of quality. But 3-1, to me, in that, I think that was the turning point of the game. Just
100%. And I think when you go 3-1 down in I think it must have been around the 50th, 60th minute, something like that, wasn't it? You then leave yourself in a really tricky position where you've then either got to really start pushing on to try and get back in, but then you leave yourself massively exposed. I think also the players are tiring at that point.
I think the heads went a bit at that point. And I understand that because I feel like in most FA Cup upsets, you get a chance to jump on momentum. And against a team like Chelsea, you're not going to get many opportunities. And it felt like that was kind of then the opportunity gone. The game went on. Certain quality players, like I say, I thought when Fernandes and Estevao came on, they were just
levels above.
Just levels above. They were clipping it over in all the time. It felt like a matter of time, but it still took till the 91st minute. Neto, lovely finish. I mean, he absolutely lashed it.
He did, but also he did really well because that was right in front of me actually where I was sat. And he sort of dummy shot and completely sold. I think it might have been Bree. Somebody just went flying because they just were going to put a block in and sat him on his arse and then drilled it really hard into the bottom corner. To be fair, there's not much you can
not much you can do. And then Fernandes penalty, not penalty. Don't really care at 5-1. It was what it was, and that was it. Done, dusted. So yeah, as a game, as I say, we can go through it quickly like that, but I do think there's some pride to take.
No, 100%. And I went away from that game thinking actually we put on a really good performance. Not even performance necessarily on the pitch. I think it was decent performance on the pitch. But just as a club, like showing that actually Charlton are a decent sized club. It's all going, it was on TNT live on it at 8 o'clock. So you're going to have a lot of people watching that and actually thinking, yeah, Charlton are a decent sized club, and actually they've got a lot of potential. So we can go over a lot of pride, and it shows that we are, like I said, a decent sized club. There was one funny thing actually that I picked up on in the game, and I don't know if you probably noticed it when you were watching. The fans were like hammering Garnacho, so he was getting booed really heavily, and I wondered if I'd missed something, whether he'd done so. But I've heard this.
Apparently it's
You read the same thing?
Well, I've seen a few different things, but I think one of them is that it kind of follows him.
Yeah. So and especially like lower league clubs apparently apparently it started at like Lincoln.
Yeah. So I've seen a few. So one is that it follows around club by club, especially like when they're playing maybe like levels above, whoever he's playing. But I also saw something that was linking it back to the game we had against them as well.
Yeah.
I think it was about 3 years ago. I can't remember League Cup. Was it FA Cup? We went to Old Trafford.
Yeah, it was a while ago now. A few years
might have been FA Cup 2 or 3 years ago.
It was. Was it FA Cup?
It's FA Cup or League Cup?
No, it's League Cup. I think it's League Cup. Now.
Yeah. But I heard something to say it was linked back to that. But I have to admit, I hadn't looked into it close enough. But I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah. No, it was funny. But I saw someone made a TikTok about it, and they were basically saying that it's becoming a bit of a thing now when they play teams outside of the Prem. Like he's the only player that just gets booed every time, and it was quite funny to be fair.
I don't mind it because I find him
he's a bit of a rat.
Yeah, ratty player. I really never been a fan, although he's decent, and
Yeah,
he had
no,
a really,
he's good.
and he actually out of all the players, I actually thought he had a terrible game.
Well, I think
He had
it got
falling
to
out of
him.
the ball.
I think it got it, like the booing got to him, and actually it was quite funny
Yeah.
because he'd like cut inside to have a shot and he got blocked, or he'd hit one over the bar, or just run it out of play. So
Yeah.
it was quite funny to watch.
Yeah. The other one I thought was quite funny. I don't know if you saw the preview for the game,
Mm.
and for the life of me, I can't remember his name right now. He's one of the guys in kind of the upper management.
Yeah.
And when he was referring to the valley, he referred to it as the bowl. It's one of the strangest.
Oh no, it was yeah, I know exactly.
I know who he is. I can picture everything, but for the life of me right now,
Yeah.
and it was so bizarre. He was like, "We want to get a
Inside
great
the
atmosphere
bowl.
inside the bowl," and I found it hilarious because on Twitter underneath, everyone was just like, "The bowl."
Maybe they're renaming the state.
Yeah.
You never know.
It was very
Yeah.
strange, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that
So
was funny. I know.
yeah, the atmosphere within the bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's quickly go on to, because I do think there's going to be no negatives today, because I think anyone who struggled in the game, in all honesty, we're playing Chelsea.
Yeah.
There definitely was some performances that maybe weren't their absolute best, but occasions, quality, what you're coming up against. But I thought there were some really brilliant displays. And we discussed over these, didn't we? Like kind of beforehand on the episode before we started the episode.
Yeah.
I think to start off, Lloyd Jones,
Mm.
and I thought he was absolutely still immense. He obviously had the header to go down, but one of the things I thought was so impressive was even when he was up against that kind of next tier, he still won every single header. And yes, there will be times he's exposed, etc. But I thought overall was really, really good, and was part of that unit in that first half that was causing a lot of problems for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think it just shows that actually his ability to just be so solid in that area of his game, it transfers whatever level he's playing at. Like, he's able to just be so consistent. And it's like what we see him do week in, week out in the Championship. But like you said, he's coming up against a higher caliber of player and he's still able to sort of dominate.
I think what he does and what he is good at, he is really, really, like, maybe surprises me how good he is at it. And as I say, going into this season, I thought he was a very good centre-back, but I now genuinely do, and I know you can get ridiculed from this from other fans, but I do genuinely think for what he does, and if that's what you're looking for from a centre-back, I think he is one of the best
in
the league.
I do. Well, he clearly is, because he's, like I say, he's consistently in team of the season. Who scored they update it every few weeks or whatever, but it's because he's so consistent. Like I say, that's his key thing, is that he's just so solid. And like he just proved again that he's actually able to play with against players well above what you would say is his level. So yeah, really impressive. I actually thought all the back line did pretty well, like considering who they were coming up against. You had Goff in there.
Well, going on to, and I'd say there's one we agreed on prior to this, but one I'd like to add in right now, and that's, I think, having kind of looked back on it, I thought Keenan Goff had a brilliant game, considering his age, considering he hasn't had much experience. I'm really excited when I see him, and I actually want to see him get some more opportunities. And I think personally, right now, from what I've seen, albeit very little, I look at Goff, and then I look at, for example, in our lineups of like Gillespie. I think there's a big argument to say I'd rather see Goff at the moment, and
100%.
100%. It even more now puts the nail in the coffin on that one. I think if we probably do need to bring him back up, but I'd like to see him actually feature a bit more, because I think we've got a really potentially very good player.
I actually think it says quite a lot that Jones was putting Goff in over Gillespie. I think maybe that's a sign that maybe, like you said, Goff might get a little run in the side, and I can't imagine he's saving Gillespie for the next game. I think we might see Goff come back in for the Sheffield game, which I'm actually quite...
And I think there was one moment where Goff had one little shaky moment in the game. I can't remember exactly what it is, whether it was a pass out or missed something, but I thought overall in the game as well, what I think he can walk away with, head held so high in that game, I don't think it stood out that he was the 19-year-old player who hadn't played. I think if you said, look across that back line, I don't think it screamed that it was him. Maybe just because visually he looks very...
Yeah. No.
Away from that,
trust me, being at the stadium,
he has a really mature head.
I didn't look at any of that back line and think, oh, they're getting absolutely rinsed. Probably the worst for me, or the most dangerous against us, was TC being run at by Gittins, for example, because he's been played out of position, TC. And actually, to be honest with you, considering who he was up against, he did all right. He did do all right.
Well, and that probably on that side brings us into the final one of the back line, which was Amari Bell. And I thought he shows that he one has played at Championship level, but you can also tell. I know he only
Prem
had the
level.
season, but he played at that Prem level because he doesn't get panicked. And I saw so many points, even at points where maybe he did take it a bit too far against the quality he's playing, but he's so calm under
Trying to
pressure.
cut
It's just,
inside,
yeah.
and yeah,
It's like he wasn't going, oh, I'm playing up against Chelsea. It was, this is
no,
my game and this is what I'm going to do. And at times, actually, that helped us and got us actually into positions
yeah,
where we hit the counter.
start playing
So,
into the midfield and things. Yeah, that's what he's so good at. Like, and the injury was a concern because he had such a good game.
there was no contact and he pulled up on his hamstring.
I saw he was like shaking his head and sort of walking down the sideline at the time.
I don't think he's there Saturday. I just hope it's not too bad and it's just a. I was quite surprised. I know we're relatively limited. I was quite surprised to see him in the
I
starting
think that was
lineup.
just purely a numbers thing, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Who we had available, and like I said, he had such a good game as well, which is even more annoying because like when he's at it and when he's sort of had a little run in the side, he's so important for us. And actually, I think that injury could be really, really harmful again. I'm a bit worried about it.
I think it could. Well, I think the one thing we need is a kind of. If that isn't the case, I think we even need a new head in very soon, who will alleviate some of the. Because the one thing is, we know he's an injury-prone player. We can't be relying on him as much as I wish he was every single game. We can't rely on him like that, and he's got to be able to have the rests when he needs them and be managed better in that.
Yeah.
Albeit at the moment it's relatively limited, but he probably looked in that game. I think Jones would have wanted to give Bell a break, but probably thought if I put TC and Gillespie up against Gittins.
Oh, honestly, that would have been a genuine bloodbath.
Yeah.
If Gillespie was in that left-hand side of the defence,
Yeah.
Gittins was running up against him.
I think he had to have that physicality, didn't he?
That would have been horrible.
Yeah, so I think that's why. But just everything crossed, that's not too bad because I think he's shown how integral he's going to be to the team over the second half of the season, getting us out of some of these problematic points we found ourselves in, but also screaming the fact we do need that replacement. Moving on from there, I think the one that really, really stood out and for me would have been absolute man of the match. I think he was picked as one of 3 players towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
2 Chelsea and just him, and it was Miles Lieburn. I thought we saw the absolute best of the best side of him.
Yeah.
Physical, bullying. He was throwing players around. He was getting in front. He got their centre back on a yellow card very early on.
Yeah, he won a really good foul.
Pushed him out of the way. Was like everything about it was getting right flick-ons.
Yeah.
And it just falls into, we've already kind of talked about his performance and kind of gone into more of that, but is this the start of him adapting to, because I think he's had a few good games recently, is this him adapting to a better style of play, or are we just seeing the purple patch that will drop off and cause this frustrating merry-go-round of where we go with Miles Lieburn? Because when I see him at that kind of side of things, I get so excited about the talent we've got there.
It really is one of those because, like you said, he still blows hot and cold, and I think he's going through a good patch right now, and he's showing us everyone exactly what he's good at, where he can be really dangerous. It's just whether he can keep that up and whether he can be consistent with it. We've spoken a number of times about how is it just a bit too premature in where he's at in his career. But actually, on days like yesterday and previous performances, we've seen where he's been really, really good. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is able to do it. It's just we're being a little bit. I think where we're sat in the league and the importance of that position in the team just ramps up that pressure on him to actually perform regularly. And I think if we were like a mid-table championship team, like solidly just sat in the middle of the table, we could cut him a bit more slack and we could be like, okay, yeah,
it's more developing.
Yeah, and you can get away with a few bad performances, but at the moment we can't afford it. And so today is just highlights. Just he has got the ability.
Well, and I also think there's 2 very similar players, academy products. We get frustrated at, and that's TC and Lieburn.
Yeah. And
when I look over Lieburn at the moment, and probably over the whole time, I think I've always held on to the fact with Lieburn. I really do think there is that potential kind of next level up, and there's a reason why before he got his bad injury, I think he was linked with going back to Chelsea, was linked with some quite big clubs. I want to say Villa at the time, although I might have that wrong. And TC hasn't. I
No,
don't think ever really
no.
had any of those links. And I think with Lieberman, it's because I think the potential there and what he does show in those glimpses is really impressive. And I think the injury did really hamper him. But I think maybe we are this season being a bit too harsh, as you say, because we're putting everything on him.
Yeah.
When actually, if we can give him a season to adapt to the Championship, learn the trade, and get a bit more experience with good heads around him, like Matty Godden, maybe another experienced head coming in as a transfer. People like we're linked with, like people like Lyndon Dykes, will probably be a great person for him to kind of learn some of the dirty sides of the game that he struggles with. I think he tries with, it doesn't. And if we can get that clicking, I do still think with Lieberman, as frustrating as I find him, and I find some games and some podcast episodes we finished, and I thought, I don't want him anymore. I want him out.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because I find him so frustrating because of that potential.
Yeah.
And I think with him, we do actually see glimpses of that potential much more frequently than we do TC. I think with TC, you see the odd occasions, but I think there's a lot more on that side than there is with Lieber. And I think there's Liebern's a lot closer to looking like a first team player.
Yeah. What I also find interesting, we've done a few videos now where we've covered Lieberman after a game, and we've analysed his performances. And we've had a few fans from the opposition who have like commented and said, actually, we thought he was your standout player in that game. And I think actually you'll find that as Charlton fans, we're probably quite critical because of, like I said, we're desperate for wins. We're looking at a player that we really want to see the best of him every game.
It's goal scoring, isn't it?
It's the
At the end of the day, it's goal scoring, because I think there's a lot of performances, and sometimes he can be a frustrating person to watch on the pitch. But I think actually what he brings in regards to physical attributes and the impact he can have on games and the chaos he can cause. I think the problem with Lieberman is he's sitting in a squad where when your squad does not really score many goals, you instantly go to the strikers and go, you're the problem. If we had a slightly more attacking lineup, we had wingers who were maybe contributing more, a few more of like your Sonny Careys who contribute, you'd probably find that pressure would be lifted from him and we'd actually look at him in a very different light. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's why other fans looking from the outside in,
they're saying
see him in a different light.
And I think they see the size of him. They see that he's got ability to get the ball down. Like, it's dangerous.
The commentators did last night. That's all they could talk about. Was he was the kind of key to unlock Chelsea and maybe cause some problems.
Yeah. And that's like outsiders, like you said, people that haven't necessarily seen him play so much. We see him week in, week out, and so that's probably why we get more frustrated than like other teams, sets of fans who see him just come up against them in a single game. But you can see why other opposition fans or commentators who haven't seen him play regularly can see that he's a real threat. Like, you can see the reasons why, and he just displayed that yesterday. We just really want to see that regularly. That's what
I think that's it. I think we want to see, and even if it's not with the goals coming with it, and I think we've seen as well the goal last. I think it was the last game prior where he had headed it onto the crossbar against Blackburn, and Kelman got the goal. You can see how, with a bit of confidence behind him as well, how you can also see that transformative side to a player, that maybe that is the piece that's missing, a bit of confidence, a bit of support, and maybe those performances, along with the team coming up a little bit, we'll see a different league.
Well, albeit like we're obviously in a league below last year, but he was at one point he had a really a proper purple patch, and he was scoring some brilliant goals. I remember that one he scored like where he chipped the keeper from
over, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like he was playing with some real confidence, and actually he's a dangerous animal when he's got his tail up and he's ready to go. And I think last night was actually a good example where he was just bang up for the game from the get-go. And that's another thing, is we want to see him like in that mind frame every game where he just wants to bully people and just like go on and get goals. So, I think we have got to stick with him. What I really do want to see, and you mentioned about Dykes, and there'll be others that probably Jones is looking at. We need somebody in there to rotate him with, so we can then rest him when he needs it.
I agree.
Which is 100% what we'll be doing. But yeah.
Well, let's go on to from there. I think that covers everything on the Chelsea game. It's a brilliant occasion, and I didn't come away from it feeling anything apart from.
I think we all were proud of.
Yeah, proud. It was kind of what to be expected. I've seen, like you always do, some people online who think it shows signs of this and that.
Oh, how far away we are! And to be honest, though, we are. Like, let's be realistic. We are quite far away from wherever that is now.
I think the ones who find criticism in a result like that personally just aren't massively. I think they're maybe just rose-tinted goggles as to where we are as a club, and actually remember that not long ago, as I say, we keep hitting this like a like a bad record, but the realistic side is a year ago we were a dwindling League One, had been kind of
Come a long
doing
way.
that for 4 or 5 years, and actually where we are now is night and day difference, and we're still miles off. But
Yeah.
imagine what we would have been a year ago if we had been going there and doing that. So,
Yeah, 100%.
well, let's move on to. We'll finish the end of the episode just looking forward to the game against Sheffield United. But I think one of the things we just wanted to kind of chat about next is some transfer talk. And I think with the transfer talk, I was hoping by now we might have, especially with what Jones said is in his interview after the Blackburn game, we might have, well, here's a confirmed signing. And we haven't quite seen that pen on paper on the on Twitter turn up yet, but we have been linked with some players, and I think
Yeah.
we've had a chance to kind of look over where we feel most important to add to the squad. But I think we'll quickly go over some of those interested and what we think it might kind of do for the squad. And the first one of those would be the interest that seems to keep popping up and up and up and seems quite strong. Lyndon Dykes.
Yeah, I think he would. I think like we brought that up briefly in the last episode. I think he would fit the mold of being a similar sort of profile player to Lieberman in terms of like physical, not quite as tall and bulky, but he's still quite a big frame.
And he likes doing the dirty,
Like
he
sort of
likes
rough sort of player.
roughing players up.
Maybe like Mitrovic, sort of
Yeah,
like dirty,
yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
And the thing that's also a positive with him is that I know people will look at his goal scoring record and are a bit sort of worried about it. But what I would say is he's sort of player that would come on and like I say, bully a little bit and rough people up. Not only that though, he would probably pop up with a few sort of like headed goal, physical sort of style goals where he might like bundle a goal in and that sort of thing.
He's experienced
He's
Championship,
experienced.
and I don't think, and it's kind of where the conversation goes on Lieben and what we were discussing beforehand. Are we needing that player in that role to be like a 20 goal a season striker, or even 15,
No.
10 goals? I don't think we do. I think we've already got potentially the
Kelman's now
makings of that in
starting to-
Kelman,
yeah.
and I saw the brilliant video on Godden that just made me smile the whole time watching it.
I
Just
think he did.
hoping that we'll see that back soon as well. But I think there's other players in the team who can do that and get that role, and it might unlock having a Lyndon Dykes or someone like that who can play the dirty game, open up space for Sonny Carey, Kelman, hopefully maybe even someone on a more attacking winging basis of coming in, because I think we desperately need that side as well.
The other massive positive with Dykes is he's I know for a fact that he's going to want to get into that Scotland team for the World Cup. So that gives him a massive motivation to sort of catch the eye of the Scotland manager. And if he can get a good run of games and where he's playing at a good level, that will be massive for him. So he's got extra motivation to really put sort of get his name down on the team sheet. So that can only be a positive thing. So
I think I personally, I have to admit, I look at it as a transfer. And when it first came up, I don't know what I thought, but actually, the more I thought about it, I do think it's a relative no-brainer.
Does kind of make
and I think
sense.
if we can do it, I think it will be a benefit to us this season, albeit not a long-term option, particularly. Albeit, who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Some players do come along and surprise you. So, I think moving on from there, somewhere that we know that we do definitely need cover, and there is a big talking point as well, is James Bree on that right-hand side, as well as covering those centre-back roles. Now, we've been linked with the boy from Ipswich.
Harvey. Is it Harvey?
No, Harry
Clark.
Harry Clark, I think it is. I think it's Harry Clark.
Yeah.
On loan at Sheffield United, tail end of last season. Not a player I know much about. Seems he can play off the right as well as I kind of understand at the back as well. Seems perfect, and that being linked with, to me, maybe puts indicators out there that Bree's not.
Yeah, so I had a brief look at this sort of profile. He's 24, so he's quite young, but he's obviously played Championship football. The other thing I read, because you always read the comments about from like Ipswich fans, for example, sort of saying whether they think he should go or not. I read some that said like he works really hard. He's like a very like mucks in, but you get the sort of he's not quite good enough, because I guess if he's not getting into the Ipswich team, then their fans are going to feel that way.
But not quite good enough for Ipswich might be good enough for us.
100%. And that's also, to be fair, Jones and the staff will have done like a lot of research into sort of the mold of player they're after. And you mentioned Bree a minute ago. Like technically, he's got like one guy. I think he might be in for the Sheffield game, and that'll be the last one.
Mm.
So we'll need to replace him if we're not going to renew it. So it would make sense again that that potentially is one that might be a goer. And I think we may see a couple of ones across the line this week. I'm hoping so.
I think so. I think we need cover at that centre-back role. We need to be able to give Burke and Bell breaks in games when they need it. I think if they play a game, don't risk them for the next one. Bring someone else in. But I don't think it just can't be a big drop-off. And that's what I think we're finding at the moment is there's either a big drop-off, a different style of play. And I think trying to get similar types of players in. And also, I think if you are going to bring players in for that reason as well, ones who are quite versatile, can maybe play multiple positions. Someone who can play a bit like Amari Bell, who can play left wing back and left-sided centre-back. I mean, that'd be quite important. I think that probably moves on to as well from there. We know centre-back, we know right-back, but I think we also got to look at that left wing-back role. I think it's probably, for me, I think that's probably the most vital one. And I find it a really confusing one because I cannot get my head round Russelon.
We don't know what's happened to him.
I don't get it. We signed him. I can only assume something's gone terribly wrong and his fitness is so far out, or he's.
I thought we might see him in the Chelsea, at least in the squad. I don't think he was on the bench, was he? I don't.
There's
think
no
so.
talk about being injured. There's no talk about anything. We brought him in. There was the whole thing. He's available for next tomorrow's game.
Yeah.
And then we've just heard nothing. And I just think I've got a really strong feeling he's going to be one of those players who we sign. We all get a bit excited about because it might solve the problem, and he never plays for us because. I just find it strange. I can see us maybe looking to get a replacement, and you'll see a thing saying mutually terminated contract or something, because there's something not right there, is there?
There's something odd. I mean, you never know. We might all of a sudden see him pop up in the squad and then start getting sort of substitute appearances, that sort of thing.
But his fitness can't be that. Was he like just
I don't know,
eating back kebabs or something? Like he's on like some weight loss routine or something? Because I just can't get what would have taken this long to at least have had like a 20-minute cameo. Like,
especially in a cup game, for example. Like, I definitely thought if he's around the squad and training and actually available, then we'd see him in that game. But clearly, there's, like you said, there's something there.
Very odd. So
we need to be looking
at Russelon is. Russell gone. Yeah, so
Russell gone.
and let's move on to where we kind of feel what kind of type of player. I think that left wing back role is so vital to this second half of the season because I think TC needs to come into being a rotation on that striker winger role. I actually liked him and thought he looked at his best so far this season when he was on the bench and come on in impact games. I think he needs it just to get him away from the limelight a little bit, take that pressure off him. And if we're looking at developing young players, that is where we need to see him. But what do we need to see on that left? For me, that kind of... My first answer is Josh Edwards.
He in an ideal world, him back would be absolutely...
And that's the difficulty, because he surely is your first choice when he comes back in.
100%.
So do you want to go big and get a replacement? I don't know what it looks like.
But then you could also... The loan market is there as well. And actually, you're looking at a player maybe of the mould of like a Bell, where he can play in the left centre-back position or the left wing-back position. He kind of a bit more versatile. Because then that covers two spots. Like you can then, and there's players out there that can cover those two roles.
They're normally aging a bit like there's a few that are your Kane Ramseys who drop into it a slightly younger age. But a lot of the time they are big physical wing back who had quite a lot of pace, lost that yard of pace, and then ended up dropping into that kind of left-sided centre-back role suits them quite well because they can still push up here. We've seen it. The Amari Bell is like the epitome.
But there'll be players out there that fit that mould, and I think that's what the club will be looking at. Is they desperately need to cover that space, and
we need more strength, more athleticism there, don't we?
Yeah, we
that's
do.
A big one.
And also, again, like if you're looking at that back three against Chelsea, probably the reason we were playing Bell, for example, who probably arguably we would have rested because he ended up picking up an injury. We just don't have the players available. And then you're playing Keenan Goff as well. He's like an 18, 19-year-old.
And I think he can be backup options. And I'm actually really excited with what I've seen. But 100% we need. And I also...
But that's not the answer, is it?
Well, no, and I think what Amari Bell and Kane Ramsey, what we notice in Kane Ramsey being out has been huge for us as well. I've noticed in recent weeks, one of the things we massively, massively lack, and I think we get exposed for sometimes, is athleticism, strength and kind of pace. We can be, when you look at the starting lineup, kind of like Kelman, Costello, Berry, Coventry, Bree. Bree's got concrete feet. I can't, when he runs forward, Burke, Jones, they're not
No,
nothing's done at any real speed. And I think actually when you see like Amari Bell, the one thing you notice straight away is he holds a man off, he pushes past him, he's got that turn of pace. What I love seeing about Leeburn a lot of the time is the athleticism, the strength, and I think it's something we really do need.
We could do some more of that in the
not
team.
just TC who is electric but a little bit weak. It's finding someone who's got maybe just that bit more power with kind of what Thierry Small used to offer us, as much as I don't really want to say that.
No, but that mould of player.
That mould of player is kind of what we need.
That's got to be on the radar. And like I say, that will be one of the prime positions they're looking to recruit. It's just who we can actually get, and two, whether they go for a transfer or a loan. Because I know like Jones isn't that keen on loan transfers, but if it fits the mould and it plugs a gap for a certain amount of time before like we get Edwards back, for example, surely he's got no issue.
But I don't think he does when he's building a squad at the beginning of the season. But I think he understands that January, once again, you don't want to get tucked up and pushed into a position in the January transfer market. And I think you've got to look at it the same as last year. Gilbert coming in, for example, he was a great example. And I think we brought in, as much as he didn't play too much, the boy from, was he Portsmouth?
Oh, yeah.
And they were both on loan to kind of cover positions. And as much as one was used more than the other, I think he's more likely to jump into that in January. And we're now at a calibre where we also could, one, get them from like your Ipswiches of players who have kind of come throughout there going up, down. But we also could get, and I'd love to see us get a Premier youngster. And I saw, for example, I think Jamie Donnelly, who played with, I think it's Jamie Donnelly, played with Kelman last year for Leyton Orient. I saw he's gone to Oxford, I want to say.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
And I thought that was a brilliant one. And I looked at that and thought, have we missed a trick there? If someone who played with Kelman last year was really quite exciting. And I think that's what you can get from a Prem loan. And you do get also awful ones. I remember when we had the boy from Man City.
Oh, we've had some bad.
Really. I want to say Forest.
No,
I know it wasn't Forest.
What was his name? The bald guy.
Bald guy who came from Man City, and we thought we'd got like the next Messi. Fiorini. That was it.
Fiorini.
So I know they can go bad, but then we look at like Jezrat Saki, like how well they can go. I just think it's maybe the time to just take a punt on one of those
100%
talented.
Charlton have had a good. Have had I mean, it is always a bit of a mixed bag, but when we've been in the Championship, we've had some really good loan players in.
Even in League One, Conor Gallagher.
And League One, we've had some great ones. So that definitely is a market that I think we should look at. And I'm hoping that also they're not as difficult to get across the line because you've got players who aren't playing, so they're really eager to come out and play games.
Yeah, and I agree with Jones in regards to, I think we've become a squad that loan players are one or two ways. They don't care in a relegation scrap is some of the argument because they've got a parent club to go back to. So you don't want too many, and we've relied on them way too heavily over the years. But I think for the odd ones to come in, and if you cherry pick the right one, worst case scenario, you don't play and they go back to their club. Best case scenario, you could get someone who could really change your season.
I feel like in the next week or so, we'll start seeing more links come up online, and you'll start to see some movement because we've got ideally we've got to really move in the next couple of weeks. Like I don't want to leave it all to the last minute.
No,
and actually these next two games, it's probably a good time to actually go on to those in a sec, but. The Sheffield United and the Derby game, they're both home games. They're teams that, I mean, Sheffield are like around where we are.
They're both very awfully...
The Derby are really up
down.
there. Yeah, so like they're games that are very like winnable. They're games that actually are going to be pretty important.
What do you think, and before we go into those games, do you think we will have a new player in the lineup?
I'm hoping this week we will get somebody in that will... freshen things up a little bit. I think it has to be in the defensive area, especially after Bell going off. I think actually the Bell injury against Chelsea is actually probably even further just ramped up the pressure.
I think the one, if we were saying we need to get in instantly and like just to freshen up, change things up, I think is centre back and left wing back. They are the two that I think are game changing. The right wing back with Bree, we've still got him for a game. We've probably got a little bit more time, but I think we have got the Apter option if we or defensive minded left back. So it'll be very interesting to see. But I hope we do have some movement in that time. Albeit the one thing I also don't want us doing
You can't
Sorry
have
about.
panic
I
on
don't want to
panic.
panic and
Yeah.
just get a load of crap in because
I
we're
don't think Jones
no, I don't think he
do
will.
it. To be fair, he's more than sort of happy to sort of bide his time if he has to.
Mm.
I think he will have told the owners that he's desperate. And actually, I think in his even in his interview after the Chelsea game, he again mentioned like the fact that injuries have massively hampered things
Mm.
and they've held us back. Probably we'd probably be higher up the league by a good few points if we hadn't had so many bad injuries this
Yeah,
season.
no, I
So,
don't
and it's a
disagree.
fair comment to make.
No, I think so. Well, let's move into those. We'll move into the Sheffield United game. We'll have a little chat about, obviously, the importance of that and the Derby game. Sheffield United, a very, very interesting one. They've gone through Wilder coming in. I think was his first game, the game against us.
Yeah, it was.
It
That
was,
was
wasn't
when they
it?
got
Yeah.
back in.
And that was Tanto's goal right in the 91st minute, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, because Sellers had an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, so Sellers had a
down.
nightmare. Wilder came in, struggled to turn things around at first. I think kind of did, and then has just gone through this up and down. I think
Yeah.
they're doing all right at the moment. I mean, a 3-0 win in the last 5 games, a 3-0 win against Brum, a 5-3 loss to Wrexham away, lost to 2-1. Beat Stoke 2-1 away, and have beaten Leicester 3-1 at home.
Yeah.
Obviously had the upset in the
Just lost to Mansfield.
yeah, Mansfield in the
4-3.
FA Cup 4-3. But overall, they seem in a reasonably good run of form. I think it's going to be a tough game. Nothing like what we saw in the first time round at their ground. But we are at the Valley, so
Their confidence when we played them was on the floor because obviously, like I said, they just got Wilder back, and we thought actually we'd struggle in that one because they'd have the manager bounce. We obviously managed to scrape the 1-0. I think, like you're right, they've picked up results. They're getting results against good sides now, and actually they aren't really probably fearing relegation anymore. I think they're going to be comfortably all right. So now you're looking at a side that have got good quality players, which they had even when they were at the bottom of the league, to be fair. They just weren't playing well. I think now you're looking at a club that are able to push up into the middle of the table. So they're going to have a bit more freedom. They're going to have more freedom in the way they play. And
but I think that can come 2 ways. And I think when you actually look at recent performances, but overall kind of where they are, they've scored 14 goals in their last 5 games, but they've also conceded a hell of a lot. And I think that's where you look at it. Is a goal difference this season so far of -2, but they've scored 36, conceded 38.
yeah,
What I think with them and where our strengths could come to it is we are very good a lot of the time. There's been a few times this season where we're not. But if we can do what we did against Chelsea to a certain extent in that first half,
against Chelsea,
and we can hold them out, they're not Chelsea. We will get more chances, and they
Yep.
clearly do give a lot of chances away. I think they give a lot of silly chances away. So I think it's going to be a game where we have to really be on our best, and we cannot lapse that concentration. And the one thing that's so important is we don't have any silly moments where we have our kind of fall apart in 5 minutes, because I think it's a game there that I think is going to be awfully tough, but there's definitely points to take there. And
weirdly as well, though, I think even after that Chelsea game, I know we lost the game 5-1, but I think actually a few of the players can really go away from that thinking, we've actually put a good effort in there. And I think like Lee Burns, for example, a good example is he's going to have a decent confidence. He's just scored a goal against Chelsea.
Yep.
Like he's going to go into that Sheffield game thinking like, if I can score against Chelsea, I can definitely get some goals against Sheffield.
yeah,
So
100%.
So like these things are actually quite important, and I think we need to be on our game, like we always need to be, because to be fair, every game in the Championship's a real struggle. But they're not a side that I fear massively. They're a side that I think could be got at.
I think you've got to respect, but I don't think you've got to show them. Look, they're in the position they're in for a reason. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not sitting around the playoffs. They are still sitting in 16th place in the league. So I think we've got to, as I say, I think that's what we sometimes do. I think one of the things I think we can be really guilty of is, one, struggling to create, but also showing some teams a bit too much respect. And I think sometimes that comes down to the system where we want to play this ultra compact, ultra defensive, counter attacking, and lumping it up. But there are teams where actually you can say you can do that, but then play it through the ranks and actually make those chances. And I think that's where we can look at some of our strengths, and I think it's going to be a really interesting game because, I say that, and then going into the Derby because it's Saturday, Tuesday, both at the Valley.
It's a quick turnaround.
It's a quick turnaround, and I think they're both so important. We need to be picking up points in these games because for all of the conversations we're having at the moment, we have got to start getting some points back on the board and really wins, because I think 1 win in 11 is
not good.
Yeah, we can't just keep saying
I think the positive thing is that we've got a good run of home games. I know Jones has recently been banging on about how we've had so many away games, the most out of any club, I think, over the Christmas period anyway. So we're going to have a nice run of like home fixtures now. And actually, Sheffield to Charlton's quite a big, quite a long journey. Hopefully that might play a part. And if we're on our game, like we've beaten West Brom, we've beaten who's the other big? Well, we drew against Coventry.
We'll beat Ipswich.
We've had some good results this season.
Sheffield United.
Exactly. And that's actually, to be fair, we've already beaten.
Yeah.
So we've got that over them.
I think, as I say, there's no team that I feel we can't get results from this season. I feel the one thing I feel more confident is we have got that solidity back. My biggest concern at the moment is we've got the solidity back, but we've lost, it seems like, most of our, if not all, creativity. And I felt at the beginning of the season we had more of that. But that will come back, and that's slowly coming back. And if we can get, for example, Kelman looks like he's hitting into his confidence. We can get Carey back in that starting lineup, because there's another one that I know we haven't talked about in the Chelsea game, but as much as I thought he struggled with his final output, he was running at Chelsea players really dangerously. Well, if we can have in that starting lineup Carey, Kelman, and Lieberman all running in form, we might start to see it. And then we've got Rankin Costello in form. Yeah. We're starting to get the informed players into the squad, and something that maybe clicks together, and that will start to create more chances, and maybe we will see a slightly more attacking Charlton, still with our defensive base, which will always be there under Nathan Jones, because that's his tactics. So.
I hope so. I hope we put in a good performance, and I hope we, like you said, try and put a bit more of an attacking sort of lineup out so that we can really push on.
Yep. No, definitely. Well, there's where we will wrap it up for today. No league table, because it has stayed exactly the same. So we will be back after the Sheffield United game. And fingers crossed, as I say, just lovely 3 points. Start kicking on 6 points.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
It'd be nice to get back on that playoff push. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one.